There have been tons of various franchises over the years. Some good, some bad, some far too overplayed to be honest. Then there's the outliers. They had a few entries and then for one reason or another just faded away into the annals of gaming history. Let's take a look at a few of these, see if we can find a few that stand a good chance of succeeding if they were to be given a second shot as a franchise today. It's safe to say that all sorts of long-thought defunct genres are making a comeback, in a big way, from fighters all the way to beat-em-ups. With the success of Streets of Rage and the rise of third-party beat-em-ups like River City Girls, I think it's time to revisit another, older franchise, one that dates back almost to the beginning of the rise of the genre itself. As you guys may have guessed, the first one is Golden Axe. This franchise got its start in 1989 and was well received at launch. With its array of different classes, each having its own various different ranges of attacks and its own magic, it was easy to see why. This game had it all, a cool fantasy setting with a wide array of enemies, and a killer main villain in Death Adder. They even went so far as to give each character a backstory, a reason for going after the Death Adder, and the tools to do so. With each class having its own weapon, the Dwarf having an iconic axe, Axe Battler having a broadsword for some reason, and Tyrosaur with her quicker longsword, they could take the battle to Death Adder, wielding those and their arsenal of powerful magics. The series was so popular, in fact, it would get 2 sequels on the Genesis alone, not counting a second amazing arcade title, Revenge of Death Adder, or the spin-off games that the Master System and the Genesis had. They would try to revitalize this with Golden Axe Beast Rider, but no love was put into this title, and it came off as a generic third-person beat-em-up. It wouldn't be until the Golden Axe prototype game was released on Steam that we would get a glimpse of what this franchise could be like today, and man, it was a sweet if short ride. Next up, Beautiful Joe. This was one of the most unique platformers ever to hit the GameCube. You play as Joe, who gets pulled into movie land and transforms into Beautiful Joe. Now he's off to save his girlfriend Sylvia, who's been kidnapped. To do this, he's been given a wide array of powers, the ability to fast forward time, rewind time, and zoom into the screen. He also has a few projectiles, one being a short-range bomb, and the other the V-ring that he throws from his forehead. All of these work off the V-meter power, which is pretty much a time limiter for each given power. This is a very tough but very fun and fair game with a gorgeous art style. The gameplay was nice and tight, so much so that you knew when you lost it was pretty much your fault and not the game's that you failed at any given part. This, mixed with the overall concept, made it one of the most unique IPs to come out of Capcom in a long time at this point. Overall, it was very well received, so much so it would get a sequel the very next year, which would give his girlfriend Sylvia powers as well and make her playable. It would go on to have at least one more sequel on the DS before fading into obscurity in 2005. Beautiful Joe himself continued to show up in various different Marvel vs. games past the time of his games, but hasn't seen another entry in the series since then. I think this one's interesting enough and fun enough that it warrants a revisit on modern consoles for a whole new generation to experience.
Head to the go-go, baby! You want some? We'll come and get it.
Here's another blast from the past, Jet Set Radio. This was a hit game on the Dreamcast back in 2000 when it launched. The premise was simple. You're part of a skate gang called the GGs, trying to take over as much territory as you can by tagging specific markers on the map. I know, that sounds a bit silly, but you had such freedom of movement in the play space and such mobility, you could spend hours just roaming around exploring the map, finding new places to tag. And trust me, you had to. Some of these were in some pretty devious spots. All the while, you're being chased and attacked by the cops and other rival gang members. The characters here were over-the-top, cel-shaded characters that you just wanted to spend time with. The animation style was on point, and the fact that the characters would start dancing if you let them idle too long just gave you that sense of playful energy that the game had in every facet. Defacing proper property aside, I think this is another fun title that Sega should consider revisiting. Crimson Skies. Yeah, I know, I've talked about this one before. But a steampunkish arcade aerial fighter using blimps as bases? Come on! Tell me they can't be taken to the next level on a modern console. Originally, this came out in 2000 on the original Xbox, and still holds up pretty well today. This looks really good to me. The gameplay followed a player named Nathan Zachary, and his group of aerial pirates called the Fortune Hunters, and was basically all about the intrigue that comes with fighting off and dealing with other pirate games. The gameplay was pretty easy to pick up and understand while staying interesting enough to keep the player involved and invested through each mission, and between the aerial dogfights and the train escort/raiding missions, the variety was pretty much enough to keep you invested in the 15 to 20 hour campaign story. It did have one sequel in 2003 called Crimson Skies: High Road to Revenge. This was similar to the first in structure and in combat, not really bringing too much new to the party, but it did bring online play with up to 16 people at once. This was another one of those games that's just could be amazingly stunning to behold, just from a graphical standpoint, if you kept to the more realistic style that they were going for in the original series. You top that off with some modern game mechanics and add a bit of depth to the combat system, and you could have something really special on your hands. Dragon's Lair. Look, this game is both incredibly tough and incredibly short, but it's insanely memorable, just because of the fact it's one of the few games that let you play a cartoon at the time. You took up the mantle of Dirk the Daring in his quest to save Princess Daphne from the clutches of the evil dragon. The game was based fully on timing. You would either have to press the right direction or hit the action button at the right time, or you would end up seeing one of Dirk's rather hilarious death sequences, which admittedly got less hilarious after like the 10th failure or so. Regardless, the franchise had amazingly drawn sets and tons of creativity, and frankly, for a group of people that admitted they had no idea how to make a video game, it was pretty amazing. Even so, it got a sequel, Dragon's Lair 2 Time Warp, another specifically for the Amiga called The Curse of Mordred, and a spin-off, Space Ace. They even tried to pull it into 3D with the Return to the Lair in 2002, which received less than rave reviews. However, I think if done again with more original story rather than retreading the original, and the controls were tight enough, it could work better this time around. Or, better yet, and hear me out now, make it a VR game. This time, put the player in Dirk's shoes and give them more control over the sword and maybe a few new tools to figure out how to navigate their way to the dragon. Seriously, people, they love this game. People love this game so much that it even got a release of the trilogy on the Switch. Why have they not tried to do this yet? Next on the list, Twisted Metal. Yeah, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I miss these crazy destruction derby games, and I mean the old school ones. Something about jumping in an arena with rockets and blasting apart other cars with these radically over-the-top characters is just fun. This series in Vigilante 8 kept me wired for hours, going through stage after stage of crazy car mayhem and exploiting every advantage I had with my particular car, and exploring what made the others unique as well. Demolition All-Stars has tried to fill this gap, but feels a little confused with you jumping in and out of your car, along with trying to feel a bit too much like Fortnite to really pick up the torch that games like Twisted Metal put down for a time. With rumors of Twisted Metal Black getting a remaster and HBO Max making a show based off of Twisted Metal, I think it's time for this franchise to have a new entry and revitalize the genre. Next up, Darkstalkers. Last but certainly not least is this title. I adored this game and played tons of it on my PSP when they released the series again, but it's been dormant for far, far too long. With the rise of fighters becoming ever more popular again, I feel like it's more than time to take this franchise out of retirement again, especially after the last one, Resurrection, suffered sales-wise due to lack of awareness on the customer base, or just bad timing as in 2013 fighters weren't nearly as popular as they are now. Keep the art style more comic book centric like MVC3, tighten up the combat and put in a wide array of the already massive cast of characters, and you have an easy hit. They could easily stand toe-to-toe with anything coming out on this generation of consoles. Well, there you have it, folks. 7 titles I think should get a reboot on modern consoles. Do you agree with the list? Are there any you personally like to see given new life on this generation? Let me know in the comments. While you're there, hit the like button and the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit the bell so YouTube actually bothers to tell you when I upload content. But until next time, have a wonderful day and happy gaming.